Out of all the questions on the 2014 exam that had multiple parts, question 7 was the one that was done the worst. A lot of marks went lost because people didn't get to it. This question was in the middle of the paper. So the reason why so many kids did badly was purely because it was a difficult question to understand what was actually going on. So what you were actually being assessed on was in 7A, journals and ledgers, and also balance day adjustments for expenses. So the main problem here is figuring out what's happening and who's who and what transactions are required. So to diagram it, we've got one business called MGH Motors, which is a car business. They sell cars. They are going to sell cars to Mara Petroleum. However, they're not going to be cars that Mara Petroleum uses. What they're actually going to be is it's going to be 6 cars for $300,000 plus GST. Mara Petroleum is going to give the money to MGH Motors, but MGH Motors isn't going to do anything. They're actually going to keep the cars at the business. So Mara Petroleum has paid money for something but hasn't got it yet. On the other hand, MGH Motors has got money but hasn't earned it. What's going to happen then is that Mara Petroleum is actually going to advertise that these cars are part of a promotion, and they're going to put those ads on TV and say, win a car from our business, and when a customer wins, they're going to give them a car. So basically what you need to sort of take it back to sort of go back one step and figure out what transactions would have happened for each business when the $300,000 changed hands plus GST. So for MGH Motors, they got money, so bank would have gone up. They received GST, so their GST liability would have gone up, which is a credit. And then the $300,000 they received, it actually wouldn't be revenue. It's not revenue because they've got the money, but they've still got the actual product. They haven't actually earned it yet by giving it to the customer, which is Mara Petroleum. So what we're going to do is actually call that a liability called prepaid revenue. So they haven't earned any of that revenue yet. What about for Mara Petroleum? Well, the first thing they did was pay $330,000. So for them, their cash would go down. They paid GST, so their GST liability would go down, so that would be a debit. And the figure that's missing is, well, these cars are going to represent advertising. However, it's only an expense when the customer gets the car, so the customer that wins the competition. So in this case, because the Mara Petroleum hasn't got the cars yet to give to the winner of the competition, it's actually going to be an asset called prepaid advertising. They haven't actually used this advertising yet because the cars are still over here with MGH Motors. So that's basically the gist of what happened. So the first thing you were told was on the 17th of October and the 24th of October, a car is delivered by MGH Motors and given to the winning viewers. So it's a good way to think of it and say, well, 2 cars were given by MGH Motors to Mara Petroleum, who then gave them to the winners at the TV station, so the 2 customers who won the competition. So what we've got now for Mara Petroleum is out of this advertising that they've prepaid, which is an asset, they've now used up 2 out of the 5 cars. So what that must mean is that it's 5 cars for $300,000. Each car must be $60,000 each. So they've used up 2 of those cars. And basically, they've actually just used up some advertising. So what we'll do is decrease the asset. And what that does is that becomes an expense now called advertising. So it's actually a pretty simple transaction. It's just that people couldn't look at it and recognize what it was. All it was you used up prepaid advertising of $120,000, and that's the entry that we need to make. So you had to do that in the general journal. So we got the date, which was the last day of October. It said, can you record the balance day adjustment on the 31st of October? We had a debit to advertising and a credit to prepaid advertising, and narration was not required, so we didn't need to make one. Looking at the marks, quite straightforward. 1 mark for the debit to advertising, 1 mark for the credit to prepaid advertising. But looking at the state, basically half of the students couldn't get 1, and that's alarming. It is a difficult question, but I think if you had have sort of sat down and maybe diagram what was happening, getting 1 shouldn't have been too much of a stretch. And 32% of the state got 2 out of 2. Looking at the examiner's comments, many students found this question difficult, but this is the important point. Most, the vehicle entry, a lot of kids clearly didn't realise that the use of the vehicles, it was actually for advertising. So we weren't going to have a vehicle asset here, we're going to have an asset called prepaid advertising. Others who did realise it was prepaid advertising had difficulty determining the correct dollar amount because it wasn't given to you. You were just told that 2 cars were handed over, so you had to go and figure that out for yourself.